Hey guys, I'm back with the third installment. Oh yes, it's another 10 not blindingly obvious tips for Dyson Sphere Program. And I'm going to start you off with one of my favorites, which I was so happy when I found this one out. This is about placing miners. And like if you look over here, it's blindingly obvious. You rotate the building with the R key and you can shift to ignore grid snapping. And so most of us figure out that if you do both at the same time, you can rotate like this. So you can rotate in very, very small increments. The thing that bugged me was that it only went in one direction. Well, of course, there is a way to do it. And that's you use the arrow keys and you can rotate in both directions. Okay, so now more of an advanced tip. Let's talk about Deuterium. Later in the game, you're going to need a fair amount of Deuterium. So the question is, what's the best, most efficient way to produce it? Well, there are two ways to produce Deuterium. This is probably the way that most people do it. They use a particle collider, and a particle collider will take 10 hydrogen and convert it into 5 deuterium, taking 5 seconds. So it produces 1 per second. If we look at the fractionator method of doing it, it takes 1 hydrogen and converts it to 1 deuterium 1% of the time. Now, it's not blindingly obvious, but that is actually the best way to do it by whatever metric you look at. And the credit for this goes to a guy on Reddit who did like a whole load of research on this. So let me show you for why. Okay, the first thing is, just look at the ratio. In the particle collider, you're doing 2 for 1. You're taking 10 hydrogen and you're only producing 5 deuterium. Whereas in the fractionator, you're taking 1 hydrogen and producing 1 deuterium. Okay, so in terms of better usage of resources, definitely the fractionator wins. Let's take a look at the speed of production. Okay, well, this one's a bit more complicated because the particle collider is producing 1 per second. Well, a fractionator only produces like 1%, but it produces it, or it processes it at the speed that it's introduced by the belt. So if you use, and this is a whole bunch of fractionators that I've got set up here to show you a little experiment. If you run this on a tier 3 belt, then you're introducing 30 hydrogen per second, which means that on the basis that you've got to pass in 100 to get 1, you will produce 1 deuterium every 3.3 seconds. Okay, well, obviously the particle collider is it the particle collider? I've forgotten what the hell the building's called. Yes, the particle collider. Yeah, so the particle collider is better, right? Well, no, because if you look at this little setup I've got here, I've got 16 of these particle colliders set up on a loop. Okay. And at some point, I'm going to hook this up and we'll pass the hydrogen through this loop. And then the deuterium is going to come out the middle and be stored in this storage tank down here. Okay, so, but it's like, okay, well, you're putting in 16 fractionators. How is it fair to compare that against like one of these particle colliders? And the answer is, if you look at the work consumption of power, one particle collider consumes 12 megawatts of power. These 16 fractionators consume just under 12 megawatts of power. So if you're looking at it from a power efficiency standpoint, the fractionators win hands down. Now, like, what are the exact numbers? Well, a particle collider, if you run them for like 5 minutes, a particle collider will create about 310 hydrogen in 5 minutes. Deuterium. 16 particle colliders will create about 1,300. So it's about 4 times more effective. So then you might say, yeah, but like, what about space-wise? Well, if you look at it space-wise, if you place down 4 of these particle colliders, well, the fractionators still produce more, and they take up roughly the same amount of space. By the time you put a belt either side of this, they take up roughly the same amount. So, why don't we take a look and see how this actually works? So I'm going to hook this up, and I'll explain to you like one thing which is not blindingly obvious, which is worth bearing in mind. Okay, so the hydrogen is introduced, goes through the fractionator, and we should start to see, oh look, we're starting to get deuterium produced. And we start to get actually quite a lot of deuterium produced. Like, as I said, one every 3.3 seconds from each of these. So we're actually producing about 5 a second. Is it 5 a second? I don't know. I didn't do that math. You can do that math. If it's one every 3.3 seconds and there's 16 of them, you can do the math. I think it's about 4.8 or something. And you can see this is ticking up pretty quickly, and that's why this reaches like 1300 in about 5 minutes. Now, the thing that's worth mentioning here is the more fractionators you put on a loop like this, the less efficient it becomes. If these were all on their own separate loop, this would actually produce about 1450 over a 5-minute period. And the reason this only produces about 1300, 1310, something like that, is because when you're passing the hydrogen through, if this thing actually makes a deuterium, then it uses up one of the hydrogens. So then you're only passing 29 onto the next fractionator. And that means you're only passing 29 all the way around the loop until we get to the point where we fill the bar up again, or fill the conveyor belt up again with 30. And you can see, as this is coming around, there are little gaps where one or more of these fractionators has actually taken a hydrogen and converted it into the deuterium. So I would recommend, if you're going to have a setup like this, do it in slightly smaller loops. Like if you feed your hydrogen into a tank like this, and then like split it into 3 and do maybe 3 loops of 6 or 8, and you would have a more efficient setup. But there you go. It doesn't matter which way you cut it, space wise, speed wise, power wise. Yeah, this is the way to produce your deuterium. Okay, now a couple of copying tips. So especially later in the game, you'll find you're putting in a lot of buildings, like especially like loads and loads and loads of smelters. And yeah, you can go and put in a row of smelters, and then you can set one up with the recipe that you want, like ingots, and then you can copy and paste it. So copy, and then you can paste it in. But it does mean that you've got 2 operations there. It is much quicker if you take this one, shift click, and then you can copy it with the recipe already included. That can save you a lot of time. Next one is also, this wasn't blindingly obvious to me. It just kind of never occurred to me. But the same is true of sorters. So if you have a sorter and you put a filter on that, so let's filter it for iron. Obviously, it'd be going the other way, but never mind, doesn't matter. And then you put others on here. Then again, using the comma and the full stop, you can copy that. If I do it the right way, good lord, copied finally, and there we go. And now I can actually put them on. Personally, now I've shown you this kind of for completeness, but personally, I find it a bit of a faff, but it is easier than setting them up individually. So there you go. That's copying buildings and copying sorter filters. I've mentioned chargers in both of the last 2 videos, and this one's going to be no exception because I've received new information. I said in the last video that 8 was the maximum number of these posts that you could charge from at one time. And a lot of you wrote back and said, no, you could charge from 10. If you put 2 in the middle and then 2 outside them, right, you can charge from 10. And that's the most you can charge from. Wrong. Actually, the most you can charge from is 12 in this arrangement. So if you put 4 in a square and then put 2 outside them, and then if I move into the center, you should see that every single one of these is charging. So there you go. Finally, we've put it to rest. The number of charges you can charge from is 12. Let the number of the counting be 12. Okay, now some quickfire tips. These all came from you guys on previous videos. So, this one, I didn't mention this one, but a lot of people said you should mention this for completeness. So, I'm going to. If you control-click on an empty space, it will transfer all of your inventory, or as much of it as it can, into a storage. So, let's say you wanted to clear out your inventory. Well, that's how you do it really quick. You can also do it in reverse. So, you can pick all your stuff up really quickly. Okay, well, that's kind of nice. This one, I thought this was obvious, like really obvious, but apparently it's not. There are people who don't know. I've had comments on my videos asking me, how do you delete stuff? Well, it's really easy. You pick it up on your cursor and then you press the delete key. There you go. That's that one done. And finally, now this one, you may only use this once per game, maybe twice. Or if you happen to fly around between planets a lot, then maybe you'll use it more. But you can carry an infinite number of items on your cursor. That's items of the same type. So, for example, if I go over here, first of all, I'm going to fill up with some iron. So all of my slots are full. Let's say I'm on a planet, and I want to bring back a whole load of these titanium alloys. It could be anything. You control-click. It'll fill up what it can, and then the rest it'll go onto your cursor. Okay, then you click on another chest, do the same again. It'll pick all of those up. So I've now got 5,911 on here. Now I could have an infinite number. I could pick up an infinite number of one product. I could then fly back from that product from that planet to my home planet, for example, and then just put it into chests that I've pre-prepared. So there you go. That is how to move an infinite amount of one product from one planet to another. That can actually be pretty damn handy. Okay, time for the final tip, and I think this is going to be the final tip. And yeah, I've had several people ask me, Skye, how do you turn the light on? Well, it's the L key. So, there you go. That's where we're going to leave it. Guys, thanks for watching. If you found any of the tips useful, maybe hit the like button. I hope something in here was useful to you. I will catch you for another one. Peace out.